So as part of our 20th anniversary celebrations in 2024, Pharos Architectural Controls is spotlighting 20 people and projects that have helped to shape our company and our products and continue to inspire us every day. Tony Sims from Pharos and I are really excited today to be joined by Nick Abel from LS Group to talk about some of his experiences in the lighting industry and how working with Pharos has helped to bring some of his projects to life. Hello, both of you. It's absolutely wonderful to have you here on the podcast. Welcome.
Hi, how are you both?
Really, really good. Thank you. Thanks so much for joining us, Nick. And I guess as this is all about you, we're just going to sort of dig straight in. So it'd be really good to understand kind of what your career trajectory has been, how you started out in the lighting industry and kind of what the path has been to where you are now.
No problem. It's, you know, it was one of those things. I got involved in lighting at high school and got involved in school shows, and it sort of opened up a world to me, which then led me to training. Once I left school, I went on and did a diploma in performance technology for theatre. Even though I haven't really spent a lot of time in theatre, it was what sort of got me started on the pathway. I was very lucky in my first year of studying. I got involved with a touring rock and roll company in Auckland, and they essentially gave me a job once I finished studying. And that sort of led me into the world of real sort of digital lighting as a professional. You know, that was when I encountered my first computerized console and digital moving lights. So, you know, I got exposed to things like the whole hog and got to learn the hog too, which then led me into other parts. So sort of I got heavily involved in service, and that's sort of a different part of the lighting. But what that did was that sort of then opened a world up to me. We started building equipment ourselves, so not so much lights and controllers, but we were building power and data reticulation systems. And that sort of service experience then sort of allowed me to move into projects. So that opened up the world of working on theatre fit outs, churches, schools, and building systems for them. And as that world sort of started to expand, I got the opportunity to start looking, you know, sort of further afield from working so much in the theatre industry, but it then allowed me to start looking at things like lighting up buildings and sort of, you know, larger, I guess you could sort of call infrastructure projects where the world was starting to move to colour changing LED lights. You know, we saw the metal halide lights disappear. People wanted to do more interesting and interactive things. So there was a lot of people out there selling fixtures and people wanting to control buildings, but there wasn't a lot of people that knew how to control them. And obviously in the theatre industry, we've got a long history with DMX. It goes back to sort of the early 80s, and this is a protocol that we all know and love. So it allowed me to sort of start moving into those other areas and helping people build and sort of tie these things together. So it was sort of, the light fittings is one part of the project, but actually controlling them is the other part. And it is an important part. It's not the most important part, but it is one of the key parts to make it all fit together. So, with the experience and the knowledge that we have with DMX, we could sort of start assisting these big companies to actually sort of take these lights and make these things work for them. So it's sort of an interesting, sort of a different arc across different things, but it sort of led me into the sort of control field.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean,
interesting. Also, you go back to the whole hog days, which is obviously our roots. So there's a long stead collection there.
That's right, and I guess that that's an important part of when I started looking at things like Pharos as I moved into that architectural space. The knowledge of the team, but also there's there is commonality in the programming and how things are done. It was easy to transition across to an architectural control system that are essentially built by people that had come from that same sort of background as me. So it sort of helped, it really helped with us to build on that platform. And obviously, we see a lot of the interesting things with the effects engines and the parts that are built into the Pharos is similar to what we see in the rock and roll and theatre industry. So it's there's a great
exactly.
link.
Yeah,
I think it's important to note that Pharos is an architectural controller built for architectural, and we've taken some of the aspects of the past into the new design for architectural system.
Yeah,
and it gives us great absolute it gives us incredible control over fixtures. I mean, that's one thing that was always, architectural controllers can often be very boring and very sort of, I guess you could call them a square thing, very rudimental. But having that flexibility and the effects engines and things that we're used to in the theatre and rock and roll world, is amazing. It opens up the whole scope of how we can use the fixtures.
Absolutely.
Indeed.
I mean, I think that kind of leads us in quite nicely to, if you can think of any sort of, of those specific examples of projects where you're like, this is Pharos, like we need to have Pharos in for this particular job to solve a particular problem.
The first project we used it for in New Zealand was a job for the Christchurch Airport. So Christchurch Airport had installed a whole lot of fittings around the outside of their building. They'd sort of traced the shape of the building, and they bought these lights, and they wanted to have patterns and effects running around the outside of the building. Unfortunately, the company that they'd engaged to do it, they did okay with the fittings, but the control was something that they didn't do so well. And so Christchurch Airport had invested a huge amount of money in the system, and it wasn't performing how they were expecting. So they sort of went out to, I wouldn't say they went out to market, but they were definitely hunting around trying to find someone to solve this problem. And it wasn't a straightforward problem. So we ended up getting approached through another party to come and have a look at this project. And we went down and met with them and sort of looked at it and went, okay, cool. This is your problem. This is the way we think we can solve it. And they said, okay, cool. Well, if you think you can make this work, let's do it. And so it was a thing where I'd been looking at Pharos for other things, but we hadn't had any jobs come along that had sort of fitted. It didn't. We needed something where it would be worthwhile to put it into. And so this opportunity sort of came up, and I made contact with the guys in the UK, and they said, oh, look, that's right, we'll put you in touch with Tony, who's in the area for you guys. He manages the Asia Pacific area. And so I got in touch with Tony, and Tony happened to be coming out to Australia. So it just kind of timed, it was just a total coincidence of firing off an email, but he happened to be, about a week later or 2 weeks later, he was out in Australia. So I managed to catch up with him and work through it and sort out some fittings and, get it working for us. So it was a very fortuitous opportunity, and that sort of really opened the door. I mean, we're talking sort of, 8-10 years ago, and it sort of opened the door for us with Pharos. And, it's been a great, step forward, and, we're continuing to sort of work closely with you guys to make it happen.
Excellent. No, that's great, and it's like you say, it was a fortuitous meeting or opportunity to meet in the flesh and get things sorted. When you were kind of under the cosh by the signs of it, with the project going the way that it was going.
It was one of those things.
I've since met Nick at when I was on holiday as well. So I kind of stopped off when I was on a camper van holiday in New Zealand. So I stopped off and met Nick then too.
Amazing.
It was an excellent, summertime in Wanaka. You can't get much better than that, If
Yeah.
we could have all our business meetings by a lake in summer.
Lunchtime lake meeting,
Exactly.
very nice.
Agreed. I think our next podcast should be recorded by a lake for sure.
That sounds good to me.
Just thinking about some of the kind of the aspects of Pharos that have helped you perhaps with scalability on projects, whether that's a large scale building where there's a huge surface area to kind of service, or perhaps scalability in terms of the intricacy of programming. Can you think of some examples where Pharos has really come through for you on projects, where you're kind of at either end of that scalability sort of scale, if you like?
I mean, scalability is a great way to describe it. It's a product that we've, obviously, as I said before, we've worked with for quite a while now. But the amazing thing with it is we can take it from a small scale project, so a little hospitality job where, might be some LED strip behind the bar and a few downlights that need to be controlled, right through to, pixels wrap around the side of building, wrap around wharves. We're moving from dealing with, half a dozen channels up to, tens of thousands. In some situations these days, so see almost sort of hundreds of thousands of channels being integrated into projects. And, with the platform, we can shift, in relative terms pretty easily between those two sort of points. And these points, are very far apart. It's an incredibly flexible and powerful tool. You've got as I said before, you've got the inbuilt engines in it, the effects engine, and so you can create these cool dynamic patterns that are sort of randomized, but also there's the flexibility of working within the the Pharos platform with the GUI, and there's lots of inbuilt I guess, triggers and things that you can use. But the other side is, if that's something that we can't do, either the team in the UK are really good at helping us work through building something specific. They're great at creating modules if needed, but also there's the Lua scripting inside it, which is incredibly flexible, and that allows us to build and customize things for our clients depending on what they require. But it's an incredibly powerful and flexible tool, and I guess you could call it the Swiss Army knife of lighting controllers. As I said, we can take it from very, very simple projects through to much more complex, large scale, and whether that's large scale and pixelation. There's also the other side where we're dealing with stuff covering a huge amount of area. Is also, we're working on projects that are covering parks, large scale buildings. While there's not necessarily a lot of fittings and a lot of channel, parameter demand inside those projects, we've got the ability, working with the Ethernet backbone and so forth, to spread these controllers out and sit them in large areas, but still have incredible control.
Great. So what's next for you, Nick, and where do you see the LS Group going in the next 5 to 10 years? What's the future for you and the company?
It's it's very project heavy at the moment. We're working on a lot of theatre builds, but also we're working on quite a few architectural projects. And one of the things, as Pharos has continued to develop their products, we've seen the Pharos Cloud, and in New Zealand it's been very popular. For us, we've worked with a lot of councils to try and make their control of their systems easier. We're seeing a lot of councils are putting colour changing lights into their parks, lighting up buildings, lighting up sculptures, and they're looking for some way to control those in a straightforward manner. So I've been working closely with a number of councils within New Zealand to help them expand that control and also manage that control, so that they can log into one portal, be a single user or multiple users, but they can go, right, today we're going to make all the parks pink across the city. It's a matter of hopping in to the cloud, scheduling it, it's ready to go, and it pushes it out over the network. So that I think that is a big area for us to continue to expand into.
Fantastic. It's been brilliant to talk to you and kind of have a look back at your history and how you kind of got to where you are today, and obviously the kind of marriage between the projects that you're working on and Pharos being able to bring some of the capabilities that it has to bear. It's really wonderful. So we just want to say thank you so much for being a part of the campaign, helping us to celebrate our 20th anniversary in this way, and just keep smashing it. We love what you do, and we really appreciate working with you.
Absolutely. Thanks, Nick.
Thank you very much for having me. It's been great to chat with you guys about, it's always awkward looking back at your own history, but it's great.
Indeed.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.